It's becoming obvious to the most that mainstream media is nothing but a megaphone for the global elite to present biased news that's designed to align the masses with their agenda.
Forces, and we've seen that on the way up. People, it's taken 20 years, but people now understand that this massive bubble was ginned up in this way with this exogenous source of created money. The important thing to wake up to right now is that has begun to be used in reverse now. So the bubble was created, and now a decision has been made to begin imploding the bubble. Now, it won't happen all at once, but we're going to have some scary days in the months ahead.
Numerous people have sent me this clip, and I agree, there's scary times ahead. And he's quoting months ahead. However, the 10-year yield has just dropped, and this could be indicative of what's to come. If we see the 10-year continuously drop, falls off of a cliff, that means that people with assets sold their assets and went into treasuries because treasuries are offering higher yields. And this could be a very big problem. The Fed is going to follow interest rates, are going to follow what the bond market does.
It is a decision that was made to begin disappearing liquidity from the global financial system on an epic scale. This is an aspect of the global hybrid war we're in. And it is being run by the people that control the central banks. That is the important thing for people to understand.
As the central banks pull liquidity out of the market, and that's what they're doing by lowering interest rates, by stopping the printing press, what they're doing is they're constricting the money supply. Therefore, there's less money for people to go out and buy assets. And this causes the issues when illiquidity happens and there are sell orders, which people naturally are going to have to sell their assets to pay for their homes, for food, for shelter, whatever. This is where out of control drops in prices occur. This is where air pockets open up and the ground shakes and asset prices plummet. And we see this happening already with lesser known assets like penny stocks or altcoin cryptos. Different assets are already falling drastically. World War I looked nothing like World War II. So why would World War III look like World War II? This is the question we have to ask ourselves as we're seeing proxy wars occur, as we see economic wars and trade wars occur.
Is championing, look, one of the things that he and I were talking about backstage, I'll share with you, the United States SEC literally puts people in jail for not providing accurate transparency. Yet we have in this SEC a reluctance to provide transparency. They won't respond to Freedom of Information Act requests. They have been sanctioned by a judge here in Utah about a case where their prosecutors lied to the court. It's really depressing when you peel the onion back to see how this SEC, they're supposed to be working for us, the people, and it's so frustrating. But
a government that's out of control, government sectors that think that they're above the law. This isn't just the SEC specific. You look at just police agencies where there's corruption. This is not just the SEC. This is all over. And this is a symptom of out of control spending that has bloated our federal government. America was the first country to ever have controls on the government. It protected the citizen from a large government. And now, 200 plus years away, we're doing the opposite of what our founding fathers aimed to achieve. And this is why we're seeing the problems that we're seeing, and it's going to compound.
The banks are worth. Do you think, if this thing is going to replace a lot of banking transactions, shouldn't it be worth at least $1 trillion?
I think all of these big blockchains will be worth multiple trillions of dollars because these are not single applications. They're entire networks of which you can build entire other businesses upon. These are immensely valuable things. but the applications haven't yet been built on it. So, yeah, I think you're dead right. This cycle is not where these things are going. I think this space goes from 2 trillion today to 100 trillion by 2032, 2034.
Okay, so the message from Raoul Pal and also Anthony Scaramucci, but you're the big kahuna, I'm just a tiny piker, is relax. Don't get yourself too crazy with the volatility. All right, let's go to viewer.
Yeah, hold on, I just want to raise one point about this.
Yeah, please.
I just want to go back to what I just said. $2 trillion to $100 trillion in, let's say, 10 years. That will be the largest, fastest accumulation of wealth in all of human history.
Yeah.
That will be double the 100-year accumulation of wealth of the S&P 500.
Yeah.
I hate to give these guys credit because it seems like they're just pulling numbers out of the air and assigning them to crypto assets. And this should give you all the confidence in the world. These guys are multimillionaires, billionaires. And are they really that much smarter than us? Are they that much greater than us? No, they were just in at the right time and place, and they were able to get wealthy. Now, they give the number of $100 trillion. Well, everything is going to hockey stick up because every 90 days we're putting $1 trillion on our balance sheet. Sooner or later, the dollar is going to break. And when it does, all asset prices are going sky high.
So for those people in the game...
Well, not to interrupt, but it would make sense because you're taking third parties out of transactions. Because you just have to think about from a human innovation point of view, every time we've interacted with each other because we don't trust each other, we have a verifiable third party to help us. If you remove that, think of the cost savings to human society, human economy. So of course it would create that level of wealth in a system that does that.
So therefore, as an investor, that's the thing to keep in mind. How do I stay in this trade for as long as possible and compound what is the largest? If I go back to anybody and said, would you have bought the NASDAQ in 1990? Everyone would, hell yes. Well, here you've got it, 1990, not 99, 1990. You go, hell yes. Well, that's where we are now, somewhere in the mid-90s of the NASDAQ.
Yeah, even though the NASDAQ in 2000 corrected by 50%, if you bought it in 1990, you're sitting here in 2024, you're a very happy camper.
Very, very happy camper. So, just think about the amount of wealth that generated from the technology boom. This is going to dwarf that.
Financial applications are just one small use case for blockchain technology. When we get into using decentralized applications, cloud computing, when we get into artificial intelligence and blockchain, this is where we're going to see real wealth occur. And then you pair that with financial applications, move out of the way. There's going to be a tidal wave of wealth headed towards this industry. The other thing that I want to add is the NASDAQ was not always priced in dollars, or the S&P 500 was not always priced in dollars. It was priced in dollars, but the dollars were backed by gold. As soon as they took us off of the gold standard into a fiat standard, that's where S&P 500 really took off. So when you buy the S&P 500 in 1990 and you start extrapolating from there, this is where the debt really piled on, and this is where S&P 500 really took off. When there was a relatively stable currency, there was not as much gains to be had with these equities. It's only when the dollar was devalued that you saw these charts go straight up.
Back to your core question. This will be a speed bump. 5 years from now, we'll look back and Gary Gensler will be in the rearview mirror, and the markets will continue to grow. Well, there'll be more successful use cases and technologies. And look, who could have predicted some of the use cases of the IP networks? As we sit here today, and you and I have been involved in this industry the internet industry a long time, you could not have predicted some of the use cases.
That's right.
The same thing will happen with blockchain. You cannot predict. If you move the marginal cost of a payment to zero, it will surprise you how payments will be unlocked. Mm-hmm. I'll give you one little tiny example that people talk about. Why do we get paid every 2 weeks in the United States? It's because of the friction of running payroll from 50 years ago. People don't know how to run a check run every day. Well, why don't we pay people every day? And what would happen if we paid people every day? Well, then you could pay your credit card every day or your mortgage every day. And that would change the dynamics and cost of mortgages. And how would that actually change how often you pay your mortgage instead of once a month? And my point in saying all this is you can't imagine how some of these dynamics will unlock 10 years from now. And if you and I are on the stage in 10 years, we'll be talking about things that we can't predict. And that's why I'm so bullish about the future of crypto.
It's estimated that 2% of the world's GDP goes to just payments and the frictions of payments. So just by unlocking payments to zero marginal costs, what we're doing is increasing global GDP by 2%. This is wealth that could be allocated towards food, for shelter, for all these different use cases and not going directly into the bank's pocket. So this is an immense use case. However, this is just a small use case on the larger grand scheme of things. Like I said earlier, you start pairing blockchain technology and you start removing all of these frictions and you start giving it new verticals like artificial intelligence. We're talking about the technologies that can produce value automatically, autonomously. And we start producing value and imprinting it right onto a blockchain. All that wealth is there for the world.
I don't think it's got to the stage where it could be viewed as digital gold. I think it is very much still a risk asset. But we're in an environment where we are going into lower interest rates, and also an environment where probably the equity markets all need to revalue down to more realistic levels before they can rally again. It presents an interesting alternative, as long as one has the patience and does the due diligence on it.
Now that Mark.
So this is an economist that is saying that Bitcoin is not exactly digital gold, but in an environment of low interest rates, it's certainly interesting. And he also mentions that asset prices are elevated and need to come down. Once they come down, Bitcoin is interesting in combination with lower interest rates. So that is another way of saying that the market's going to crash. And when it crashes, the Fed's going to lower interest rates, and then Bitcoin looks very interesting. The financial magazine Reuters recently wrote a report on the impact that Russian sanctions are having. Quote, Russia's central bank told businesses they could use multiple choice solutions, including cryptocurrencies and other digital assets to facilitate payments with foreign partners. Russia's booming trade with China, India, and the UAE, Turkey, and other countries which have not imposed sanctions has suffered major setbacks in the last few weeks. New financial technology creates opportunities for schemes which did not exist before. This is why we softened our stance on the use of cryptocurrencies in international payments, allowing the use of digital assets in such payments. Different alternatives are being discussed. Businesses have become very flexible, very enterprising. They find ways to solve this and often don't even share them with us. Russia's business partners in various countries were under tremendous pressure, but said a new global payments system not involving Western institutions would gradually emerge since many countries felt vulnerable using only one international payment system with no alternatives. There's a huge catalyst to move away from the dollar to create a global payment system that does not include the West, a payment system that BRICS countries can use for international trade. You see, this is the ideal use case of various crypto protocols, not even just XRP, but a plethora of different protocols. And what we're seeing right now is Russia, that's a fairly large economy. It's not exactly the largest economy, but it's a pretty decent sized economy. But their allies, their trading partners are large economies. China, India, these are very large economies, and they're incentivized to move away from the West and do business with Russia because they have the natural resources. The head of Russia's central bank, Elvira, has said that other countries from the BRICS grouping of countries were in discussions over the BRICS bridge payment system, which would be designed to bridge the financial system of member countries. She also added that discussions were difficult and that it would take some time to create such a system. The head of Russia's largest lender, VTB, which recently had sanctions imposed on its branch in Shanghai, was recently sitting alongside Elvira, the head of the Bank of Russia, and said that any information about mechanisms to facilitate international payments should be made a state secret by law due to its sensitivity. I can see very well that right now somebody at the U.S. Embassy, a second secretary, is sitting and writing down every public statement of ours. Maybe he is even sitting here. Whatever steps we take, we can see that the reaction from the Western countries is very quick. The Atlantis Press is a private organization that is originally from the Netherlands, and they're creating documentation for scientific, technical, and different research papers. And they came out a while ago with a PDF that stated that Russia, the Bank of Russia, was using the XRP ledger for cross-border settlements. I was speaking to a friend and I was talking about my frustration with XRP's price action and how Ripple failed to use XRP to back their stablecoin. Instead, they used treasuries. And I said, it just feels like a low blow. And my friend's response was, of course it feels like a low blow. It's supposed to feel like a low blow. Ripple's part of the New World Order. They're going to stick the knife in and they're going to twist it. Anytime a secret group usurps the collective will of the people, it's wrong, period. Thanks, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the show. Please take a moment to like and subscribe. If you enjoy content like this, please consider joining my Patreon or my Ghost site, dmjr.ghost.io.